In this video, we're going to be talking about one of the most mysterious characters in the scriptures, Melchizedek. First, we're going to read Hebrews chapter 7, but stick around because at the end, we're going to talk about who this Melchizedek is. Hebrews chapter 7. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem. Now, some renditions of this and some translations of this say king of Jerusalem, okay? Because king of Salem means king of peace, like shalom. Jerusalem means city of peace. Priest of God Most High, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. Abraham just basically got back from a war. Can you imagine Abraham? Good old Abraham fighting a war against kings? Yes, he did. And when he came back, he met this Melchizedek, to whom also Abraham divided a tenth part of all. Now, speaking about the name of Melchizedek being first by interpretation king of righteousness, the name Melchizedek is actually a two-part name, Melchizedek. Melchi is king in Hebrew language, and Sedek means righteousness. So king of righteousness is his name. And then also king of Salem, which means king of peace. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, remains a priest continually. Now, we're going to get back to this, but I want to read the rest of this chapter, but I want to talk again about what this means about the everlasting character of Melchizedek. Verse 4, now consider how great this man was, to whom even Abraham, the patriarch, gave a tenth out of the best plunder. They, indeed, of the sons of Levi, who receive the priest's office, have a commandment to take tithes from the people according to the law, that is, of their brothers, though these have come out of the body of Abraham. But he, speaking of Melchizedek, whose genealogy is not counted from them, has accepted tithes from Abraham, and has blessed him who has the promises. But without any dispute, the lesser is blessed by the greater. Here, people who die receive tithes, speaking of the Levites, of course, but there one receives tithes of whom it is testified that he lives. We can say that through Abraham, even Levi, who receives tithes, has paid tithes, for he was yet in the body of his father when Melchizedek met him. Notice Levi, or Levi as pronounced in the Hebrew, was in his father's loins, was in Abraham when Melchizedek blessed him. You see, Levi is a great-grandson of Abraham. Verse 11, now if perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, there's the key there, Levitical priesthood, for under it the people have received the law, what further need was there for another priest to arise after the order of Melchizedek, and not be called after the order of Aaron? For the priesthood being changed, there is of necessity a change made also in the law. This verse 12, is very, very packed, okay? And I'm not going to get into the details in this video, but in the next video, Lord willing, I will. I'll focus the entire video on that one verse. It is packed. But for now, let's move on. Verse 13, for he of whom these things are said belongs to another tribe, from which no one has officiated at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord has sprung out of Judah, about which tribe Moses spoke nothing concerning priesthood. This is yet more abundantly evident if after the likeness of Melchizedek there arises another priest, who has been made not after the law of a fleshly commandment, but after the power of an endless life. For it is testified, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. And that is found in Psalm 110, verse 4. Now that is speaking about Jesus. For there is an annulling of a foregoing commandment because of its weakness and uselessness, for the law made nothing perfect, and a bringing in of a better hope through which we draw near to God. Notice that phrase, for the law made nothing perfect. In other words, the sign that says do not touch, doesn't guarantee that nobody will touch it. But if you take away any desire or inclination to touch it, then the law is fulfilled. And that is what the New Testament did for us. Inasmuch as he was not made a priest without the taking of an oath, for they indeed have been made priests without an oath, but he with an oath by him that says of him, the Lord swore and will not change his mind, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. And again, that's Psalm 110, verse 4. By so much, Jesus has become the guarantee of a better covenant. Don't forget that covenant is not law. The law is in the covenant, but the covenant is not the law. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. Say, well, we're under a new covenant now, so it's a new law. We're going to talk about that in the next chapter, chapter 8. Verse 23, many indeed have been made priests, because they are hindered from continuing by death. But he, because he lives forever, has his priesthood unchangeable. Therefore, he is also able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God through him, seeing that he lives forever to make intercession for them. For such a high priest was fitting for us, holy, guiltless, undefiled, separated from sinners, and made higher than the heavens, who doesn't need, like those high priests, to offer up sacrifices daily for his own sins and then for the sins of the people. For he did this once for all, when he offered up himself. For the law appoints men as high priests who have weakness, but the word of the oath, which came after the law, appoints a son forever, who has been perfected. Obviously speaking about Jesus. But let's talk a little bit more about this Melchizedek. There are many speculations as to exactly who this Melchizedek is. If you were to speak to the Jewish crowd, those especially from the school of Hillel, they would tell you that Melchizedek is Shem, the son of Noah, whereas the apocryphal book, The Conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan, says that Melchizedek is the son of Canaan. Whether that means biologically or spiritually, well, that's another whole issue. But then, if you look in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the scrolls of Qumran, it says that Melchizedek is actually a form of Michael the archangel. Now that, I believe, is a little bit more closer to the truth, at least as defined by the author of the book of Hebrews, because the author of the book of Hebrews says explicitly that Melchizedek has no father, no mother, no genealogy, and that he is eternal. He lives forever. And because of those characteristics, and the fact that the author of the book of Hebrews calls him a son of God, or like the son of God, I would say that Melchizedek is an angel. Now, I know that some Christians would say that Melchizedek is the pre-incarnate Christ. It was Jesus who appeared in spiritual form before Jesus was actually incarnated through Mary. I wouldn't say that's the case, although Melchizedek certainly does represent Jesus. I wouldn't say that he actually is Jesus. And that's because it says in the book of Hebrews that Jesus came in the likeness of Melchizedek. So it doesn't say that Melchizedek was actually incarnated and he became Jesus or they're the same person. The likeness of Melchizedek, and he came, to be a priest in the order of Melchizedek. So that comes short of saying that Jesus is Melchizedek or vice versa. But the question of who Melchizedek is not the only controversy that surrounds this character of Melchizedek, but also exactly what happened when he met Abraham. Some people believe that Abraham paid Melchizedek tithes. Some people believe that Melchizedek actually paid Abraham tithes because of the ambiguous statement in Genesis chapter 14 saying he paid him tithes. It's like, who paid who tithes? Obviously here the book of Hebrews, the author of the book of Hebrews, believes that Abraham paid Melchizedek tithes. But it's important for you who study Melchizedek to understand that there are people who believe that it also goes vice versa. And honestly, studying this story, I would say it could go both ways. Because you see, Melchizedek came to Abraham, and Levi being in Abraham at that time, Melchizedek was like paying tithes to Levi. Because Melchizedek brought bread and wine, and those things can also be used as tithes if you read the Torah. Now, speaking about the bread and wine that Melchizedek brought to Abraham, that's another thing that is studied and speculated upon. Why bread and wine? Some people believe that Melchizedek brought bread and wine because it was commonly done in those days for those who were wearied through war. So it is speculated that Melchizedek brought bread and wine as per custom. Now, Abraham, you just got finished a war, okay? You're tired, you're hungry, here you go. And that kind of goes hand in hand with Melchizedek being an angel, okay? So if Abraham was really tired and weary and hungry, an angel came to feed him. But there are multiple levels of looking at this, multiple levels of meaning. Bread and wine could have been just, an act of hospitality to feed the hungry. But it could go deeper than that. Some people believe that it was a sign from Melchizedek himself to Abraham, basically saying, I accept you, and here's a gift of acceptance, of friendship. It could be a sign of peace from Melchizedek to Abraham, because Abraham just got through, killing a lot of people. Was Abraham in need of some kind of consolation, of some kind of comfort? Is he still accepted of God? Is he still considered to be righteous in this? Now, in the next video, I am going to tackle Hebrews chapter 7, verse 12, where there's a change of priesthood, there's a change of the law. Until next time, seek him with all your heart. And if you do, you will find him. Call upon him, and he will show you great and mighty things. Love you guys.